Logistics with Purpose. I'm your host, Enrique Alvarez. I'm Managing Director of Vector Global Logistics. And of course, today we have an amazing guest. But before we introduce our guest, I also have a really, really interesting co-host. This is the first time that I'm doing this with a really good friend of mine, Paul Courtney. How are you doing today, Paul?
Enrique, I'm doing great. I'm a little bit jet lagged, just got back from Vietnam, so maybe I've had better days, but I'm super excited to be here. And this is I think this is my first podcast ever. So so go easy on me.
Well, no, I think this is all going to be, we're highlighting our good guest today. And before we go into that, I'll let you, Paul, introduce our guest. Paul Courtney, of course, president at Courtney Agencies, a B Corp certified customs broker and freight forwarding company. Paul, I don't know if you want to share something or a quick anecdote as of how we met, and also a little bit more about you and your company.
Yeah, no, thanks, Enrique. Yeah, I think we originally met at a B Corp conference in Vancouver, and then I was I remember Enrique, he was the master networker. I remember you there. You were chatting everybody up, and it's like, hey, I got to meet that guy. And, uh, and then I guess in the springtime or last year sometime, I was back east and I dropped in on Enrique in his office in Atlanta, and we went out for lunch and we had sushi. I remember that. I remember we both play soccer, so we're both like old soccer players that continue to try to do that anyway. So that's
Looking
kind of
forward
what.
for the World Cup.
Say again? Yes, that's
Looking
right.
forward for the World Cup.
That's right. That's right.
Any predictions, Paul? Who do you think is going to win the World Cup? And we'll air this show right after the World Cup when you're right.
I, oh, I don't. Team Canada.
Canada. All right, Canada. All right. That would be
Gonna
interesting
give me
winner for
odds? I don't know.
sure. But go ahead. Without further ado, let's introduce our great guest of today.
Great. Yeah. Well, first of all, I guess I would say that when our company was embedding a social purpose and going through the B Corp process, Rob's name came up a lot. And I have to admit, I've never actually met Rob, but my wife is a friend of Rob and his wife, Jacqueline. And Rob's kind of a hero of ours, whether he knows it or not. Um, and so with that, yeah, so it's my great pleasure to introduce Rob Safrata, a fellow Vancouverite based CEO of three social purpose and climate leading companies, Novex Delivery Solutions, Coast to Coast Experiences, and Fuse Power Management.
Rob, thank you so much for joining the podcast. It's a pleasure to having you here.
Well, let me put it this way. I always learn something when I'm speaking with others. So I am very much looking forward to today speak to other B Corp members, especially. It's it's a very intentional group, very special group because of the values that we manifest, that we exhibit. And it's a great way to do business, better way to do business. So
I agree
wonderful.
with you.
Happy to be
Totally
here.
agree with you. And we're looking forward to learning a lot from you and from you have done from your career. But before we dive into it, we're going to start with something that's become a feature now, which is our quick questions. So if you can respond with whatever the first thing that comes to your mind is, I'll ask you a set of quick questions just to kind of get to know you better.
Yes, and do you have a title for these questions if these are your
We
common
very
questions?
creatively call them the speed questions. No, we
Okay.
don't. We don't. We should come up with a title, and maybe we'll do that after this interview.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So first one is, what's one thing you can't live without?
Health.
Favorite hobby?
Well, hobbies. I'm going to comment on some of these as a not so much a quick answer in that I've been fortunate to love what I do. So my favorite hobby is turning not every idea, but some ideas into something real.
What's one thing you do to stay productive?
Sleep.
What's your favorite book?
The War of Art. Not the art of war, the war of art.
Thank you very much. We'll have to put the link to that book. I don't think I've heard about it before.
It's enjoy it. It goes along with my answer about turning ideas into reality.
Great. Well, Rob, thanks for those answers. Some interesting answers for sure. Now we'd like to hear about your background. Maybe tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your childhood and that sort of thing.
I grew up in Toronto, Canada. My father immigrated from Czechoslovakia. He escaped. Um, he just, as he told me, and there may have been other reasons, but he really couldn't abide by living in a communist regime when the Russians took over. And I had my mother's from a farming town north of Toronto, and the reason I mention that is because, we grew up in the city. And so this squeaky clean, wet behind the ears, kids would go up to the farm often. Summer weekends, winters, and, shovel and throw things and meet our extended family there. And that was really good for city kids. My parents joined a ski club in Collingwood, and there are a few ski clubs there. And I, at the age of 9, fell in with a group of other keen skiers and a wonderful coach. And at the age of 16, I made it onto the Canadian ski team, which is a very, very young age. One other fellow who much better known than me as far as skiing. We're from the same ski club. He's 2 weeks younger than me, and his name's Steve Podborski. And some people listening will know what that means.
Yes.
He was really the most successful crazy Canuck downhill racer. I did my share of downhills, but I preferred giant slalom. So I'm the only uncrazy Canuck. And the reason I mention that is it's a lot of my learning from the age of really sort of 13 when it was pretty heavy duty. And then at the age of 15, 16, 9 months a year, I would be away somewhere skiing, including Latin America or New Zealand or Europe, of course. We'd always go where it was cold. Canadian. And I retired. I quit when I was 20, which also was young. But, in the 70s in Canada, and certainly in Eastern Canada, the word entrepreneur was not a good thing. And in Toronto anyway, Eastern Canada. And so that was hard because I didn't really know what I wanted to do except to do things, to make things come to life, to do things a little bit better. And I did work in a large company for 4 years, a very large Canadian company in their corporate office, but it wasn't suited for it, as you can imagine. And yet I'm glad I did it because I learned what it's like for others who work in those large companies. And now I deal with a lot of those people, and I'm not frustrated by them. They're really, hardworking, brilliant people, and they have a culture or a set of rules that they need to work within. And so I understand that. And I think it's important to know the difference. We're B Corp people, so we work with a lot of people who aren't, and who that's not their focus or their interest. And that's okay. That's okay. We need to work with I like to work with those who at least are interested or curious or keen. And if you remember, I hope people will look this up, Ray Anderson, who was the owner of, I just forgot the name, what is it?
Carpet company.
Yeah.
Interface
Carpets. How could I forget? And I met Ray Anderson a few times, and if people go online and look up him speaking, he's really brilliant. But early on I think certainly the 90s, he decided that he wanted to reduce the footprint of Interface Carpet and made a bold statement that they would be carbon neutral in the future. But I met Ray a few times, and I asked him once, what do you say to the naysayers? what do you say to those people who aren't interested, don't believe, or in fact think it's not true? He just said, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I can't.
Don't
I
entertain
can't.
them, right? At the end of
I
the day.
can't. I'm never going to. I'm not able to overcome their viewpoint. So I like to work with those who are interested. And I think for the purpose of this podcast, that's really important, is to find your people, to work well with those who you can work well with, and to move things forward and hopefully infect others along the way, do good things, do good works. And so my background has been a lot of that. I've been involved in other companies that I've started. I've purchased 38 companies in 3 different industries, not 38 different industries, but a platform, and then one of them there were 24, and the rest were in a couple of others. And I just love the people that I meet through these companies, or that I get to work with. And that's one of the questions maybe I could have answered, is when I wake up in the morning, I truly look forward to whom I get to work with. And isn't that,
So,
aren't we lucky? Aren't we lucky? I
absolutely.
will also finish, because I could talk forever and I shouldn't. But I have these Robisms, and one of them is, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is at least you get to live your own personal hell.
That is funny.
You don't have to live someone else's.
And it's so true. We can definitely relate to that. And before we jump into your career, because I know Paul has a couple of questions there. Is there like any specific story from your early years, kind of like that shape who you are now? Is it either from your dad escaping, or you while training as part of this ski team? I mean, is there something that you can remember that then said, "Well, this is the attitude I had, and that's why I ended up as a successful entrepreneur, and this is why I ended up buying all these companies." And we'll talk a little bit more about those, of course, down the road.
Sure. Sure. I can connect a few dots, if you will. And I actually like to say that I don't connect dots, I collect a lot of dots. And when I collect enough of them, it's obvious to everyone what the picture is. So I'm very curious. But my father was very entrepreneurial, and so that helps at the dinner table. And I just thought that's what people did, quite frankly. I didn't know what it was like to work in a big company. I never aspired to it. I thought, okay, that's interesting, but it wasn't something I didn't know what I saw myself doing. But having that around me was helpful. Also, on the ski team, no one holds you back. No, they say, hey, how well can you do? And every day it's, how can you be 110%? How can you be better than yesterday? How can you do more? So there's never any guideposts, and that mindset um, has stuck with me, and it served me sometimes well, sometimes not well, when I try too hard and not aware of things that I really shouldn't even be trying, perhaps. But those were, uh, you know, part of my influence. And then I can wrap it up with a bit of a story. I mean, I did projects when I was young, but the easiest one to tell the story, I was 16, and Robert Redford, who passed recently, was in the movie The Great Gatsby, and he had an all-white tuxedo. And I was thinking a bit of a dandy, and was going to my first formal. I thought, well, I'm going to get an all-white tuxedo. That's how I'm going to go. And I went downtown in Toronto to a formal rental place, which you don't see 16-year-olds there,
Not many.
people that are older. And I'm in there with my pimples and sweating and feeling out of place and nervous. And I'm looking in the brochure and I don't see an all white tuxedo. And finally, the salesman comes over. Can I help you? Well, perhaps. I was hoping to get an all white tuxedo, I said. He said, oh, we have them. We just haven't done the brochure yet. Okay, great. So let's proceed. So he measured me up, and I'm going to come back in 2-3 weeks to get it. And then at the end of it, I said, can I speak to the manager? And he said, is something wrong? I said, no, I want to print the brochure. And I did.
Nice.
And my father, a really good friend of our family's, ran a pretty big printing business. So I just knew that. I knew I could figure out how to do it and get some help. And I went upstairs and I asked the guy. He said, "No, we haven't put the bid out yet." And I said, "Well, I want to bid on it," and I did it. So it's just, you know, who would do that? I just thought that was normal. I thought that was natural. It's an attitude, I think. Yeah, and to me, it was filling a need. I think in many cases, I just try to fill where there's a need or a real need.
That's great. That's awesome. Awesome stories, Rob. Thanks. Um, so your journey, talk about your education a little bit. Your journey reflects a remarkable commitment to lifelong learning, from earning your BA at Western University to completing MIT's entrepreneurial master's program, to Stanford's technology and the future of business, and most recently, IMD's high performance leadership program through YPO. How have these experiences shaped the way you lead your companies and prepare for the future, particularly when it comes to business innovation and sustainability?
Well, thanks for the
Mouthful.
list. I think fondly of all of those except the BA. When I quit racing, I did you could do a 3-year BA at Western. And for me, it was like high school. I did high school, but I just kind of raced my way through it, if you will, summer courses and whatever, lots of help from the teachers. But university, I tried one of every course and I wasn't interested in any of them, quite frankly. And I wasn't good at it either. I hadn't really learned how to study, how to test, how to do essays. I hadn't really learned that. And yet there's this sentence from Maclean's. I'm married to a woman who's a PhD, so you get it. But A students teach B students to work for C students. And I was a B and C student, but I often wonder are C students entrepreneurs because they don't get hired?
Yeah.
Maybe, they don't have an option, maybe, or they're off doing other things. So when I was in university, I was running a business. I actually was. And I was doing I had mail order business for competition padded skiwear, which is kind of new at that time. And I was, I'd go to the library and have 4 hours, think, okay, I'm going to work on my history paper. And about 25 minutes into it, I was phoning my supplier, writing the brochure, redesigning something, whatever, for 3.5 hours. So that was a bit of a clue as to what was going on. And yet I'm glad I did university because I did learn a little bit better how to think, how to research, how to communicate, that kind of thing. And I met some good friends there too. But these other courses, I hope people find, once a year at least, something that's not one day, but a few days or a week, something. They're eye-opening and coming back from them, it's okay. I've got 5 years of ideas or work here. Which ones am I going to do? So the MIT was, it's grandly titled the Masters of Entrepreneurship, something like that. And it truly was. And it was hosted by MIT at Endicott House, which is an off-campus, beautiful spot. But it was 3 years, one whole week each year, the same 90 people from around the world, young entrepreneurs, and the people they bring every year to speak and teach is phenomenal. And one of my best friends is a fellow that I met there. And many people have built tremendous businesses and the alumni from that. I just think it's a gift to yourself and the people you work with as you go along to be re-upping and not sticking with the few things we knew when we were in our 20s. Now I'm almost glad. I don't know what you guys. I'm going, oh, this AI thing. I'm glad I'm not 25 or 30 right now. I had no idea,
Yeah.
And some of our friends' kids, they talk about their work and go, it's not AI proof. In 5 years, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
They
Right.
know if it is or not AI proof.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you very much for sharing that with us, Rob. I mean, you founded and led companies across very different industries, right? Which gives you a very complete set of tools. And for example, you founded Novex, redefining the sustainable delivery for more than 24 years. Then you went on and founded Coast to Coast Experiences, 16 years strong in the travel and experiential sector. And now you started Fuse Power Management, which focuses on the EV grid space. What is or what seems to be the common thread that connects these ventures under your leadership and purpose-driven vision?
Well, those ones, again, that's kind of call it the second half of my career. I was doing technology things and non-tech things before then, starting companies. And by the way, I didn't start Novex nor West Coast to Coast. I bought them. And so they already had a fair bit of momentum, which is great. And though we did grow them recently. But the common thread there is triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. And in that order. And that's where I connected with B Corp. And again, I give credit to others. And in this case, my Jacqueline, my spouse, partner of over 41 years now, she's very much an environmentalist. She's the founding chair of EcoTrust Canada, which is a U.S. based, a very well known U.S. based group, and she's the founding chair of EcoTrust Canada. And when I bought Novex Courier, she turned to me and said, "Why are you buying that polluting business?" And it's a local same day delivery business. And it started in actually mid 80s. I bought it in 2000. And she was right. And I quickly said, because I can clean it up. And think about it. If it's a company like that, there's a lot I can do to clean it up, by, as uh, getting our drivers out of their $3,000 beaters that they would show up with, because we don't own the vehicle, and into hybrids and now electrics. And we figured out how to do that. So our footprint has been reduced by over 59% as a delivery company. So we're very, very proud of that. So that's what the triple bottom line: the values, the social part, environmental part, and those, as we know, raise all boats. I have to say leadership too, and I would like to say this quickly. When I worked with this really large company in the early 80s, I always joke, the day I arrived, the stock started going down, and 4 years later, the day I left, the stock started going up. But what that meant was, it's true, it was a bit of a recession in that industry, is that it was a go-go company and then it wasn't. And they didn't know how to manage. Like they weren't trained managers, get her done, wonderful growth business people. And so I really thought a lot about leadership. And, uh, if you go back to, you do what I say leadership, feudal owner, I own you, or then fast forward command and control, which certainly my parents grew up with. And then there was inspirational leadership. That's not the right term, but there was the rah rah sort of thing, which is good, but it's not. It doesn't last long. And then people can look up servant leadership, which I think is very complete, well practiced, studied, written about, all that kind of thing. And after I left this company, I said, leadership is important. How you run something is important. So I came across servant leadership. And so it makes my job a lot easier, because if you work for me, I say, okay, who are you? What do you like? What are you good at? How can I help? And I can help because, I can bring you resources or suggest things or, that kind of thing. So that's nice. That's pretty good. And I recommend that to a lot of people. And then I found something, and and if you look it up, you don't find it. I call it cause leadership. And this is my own kind of collecting the dots. There's a fellow named Lance Secretan. He's a Canadian He's been an author and consultant now, and he wrote a book about leadership. And he turned around and he said, "Well, who are the great leaders? What were they like?" And Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Martin Luther King and Jesus. He said, "Okay, what did they do?" Well, the short answer is they represented a cause. They represented something bigger than them, something truly important and impactful. And so people flocked to them. It's obvious people. So I think a combination of servant leadership and cause leadership are marvelous, that we can identify what we're doing and what we're all doing together is something bigger than ourselves. And what it does is it self-selects who shows up too. So you gentlemen could talk to me about this or more, I'm sure. But I did want to just connect that flow and have people think about it. And if you look at servant leadership closely enough, there is I think it's the fourth segment has to do with purpose and cause. Yeah.
Great, Rob. Yeah, we've been a customer of Novex for many years, so certainly, great company. We love it. It's awesome. And my next question, you've probably already actually answered most of my question, but I guess I would ask, like, what you learned at Novex and around green logistics, things like that. How did that impact, like, how you approached your subsequent ventures?
And Paul, I'm going to give a few comments, but I want to turn the question back to you
Okay.
because you're a rare bird in this industry
That's not allowed.
as a B Corp, and both of you actually. And again, it's just, I call it unanticipated benefits. Okay. And because I hadn't been in the delivery industry, and because pillow talk is powerful, because my wife was saying, "Can't you do it better?" That was her question. Can't you do it better? And then hybrids came out. I mean, you needed the tool, right? And hybrids came out in around '03. So I thought, okay, yeah, if we could get our drivers into hybrids, that would be a lot better. So we figured out how to do that. I don't need to get into that unless for this purposes of this. But then there were some unanticipated benefits. So we were able, this small local single courier company was able to get the federal minister of the environment when we launched with the first 20 hybrids in our fleet. Now that in itself is incredible. And so he was there for about an hour. He gave a talk. There was a fair bit of media. And I went back to the office a few hours later, and there was something palpably different. We have about 18 people in the office and 100 drivers, and the drivers aren't typically in the office too often. And there was something palpably different, and it was pride. They were proud. They weren't a courier company anymore. They were saving the earth, or they were doing something good. They had something better than, and there was pride. Okay, so that's okay. Pride, what's that worth? Well, here's what it's worth. When we were hiring and drivers, we got better drivers and better resumes. Well, our turnover went way down. So in this industry, 35 to 40% annually is the turnover of drivers. That's a lot of cost. Finding them, interviewing them, training them, outfitting them, all that kind of thing. First few months when they're not as efficient, sort of thing. Ours is 5 to 7%, not 35 to 40%, 5 to 7%. Well, you can monitor, you can look at what you used to spend in hiring and all that, and that goes way down. But we give a lot of that money to the drivers to help them buy their hybrids and their electrics. So that's it. So they're just, the turnover went down, better resumes, sales went up. Customers are way stickier. Customers come to us when we don't even sell them because they want to be identified with a green company. They want to do good too. So I could go on and on, but I'm going to turn it back to you, gentlemen, and say, with the B Corp, what would you say are the benefits, unanticipated or other?
Go ahead, Paul. You go first.
I'm on the spot here. I definitely think there's a better cohesion for our team. We don't own assets per se. We don't own trucks and airplanes and all that stuff, but we ship stuff around a lot, and we want to do it better. And I think our team is committed to doing that. And I think, like you found, is that there is a bit more of a sense of purpose amongst our people, right? So I would certainly agree to that. I mean, I think we can always do better. I always talk to our team around even base what we do, like we sit at a desk all day and we process shipments, right? But it's like what you're doing in and of itself is a good thing, right? Like, you're getting, you know, we work on behalf of companies that fight fires as an example, right? And just use some of the examples of what some of our customers do to just show, there is a sort of base level of goodness of what we do, but we want to take it to the next level. And measuring our carbon footprint, trying to reduce things like that. It has been a little bit more challenging around reducing, because a lot of carriers other than Novex are there's not a lot, still not a lot of options, to other than changing modes from air to ocean and doing things like that, right? But I do agree with you absolutely. I think there's a higher level of commitment from our team, lower turnover, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And well, it's been, I of course agree with what you both have said. And then I'll just add the fact that you can get better talent. And you mentioned it, Rob, it's all about the team and the leadership of the people that you have in your company. So if you can attract better talent because it's more purpose driven and it's clear why we do things, and that attracts better people, then you end up having a huge competitive advantage because you will be having better people. And of course, in a service oriented industry like Paul's and mine, it's all about the team that you have. That's really our strength. And so having more committed, purpose-driven, uh, ambitious people, visionaries, I would even say, people that really want to make a difference in this world will just work harder to get things done. And that for me is definitely one of those additional benefits that you get from being a purpose-driven company. I wanted to ask you, Rob, and maybe this is also for Paul, why the certification though? I mean, why do you think it's important to actually go from the culture and values that you've been having since your dad kind of instilled those in you and your parents? Why is it important to you? Novex has been having this B Corp certification since 2013. Why the certification? Why is that important?
Uh, Many reasons. One is, truth. I think part of the frustration, I think we would all agree, is the greenwashing, the level of greenwashing and mistruths and claims that, you know, it's incredible. Still the level of greenwashing. I haven't heard that term in a long time. Maybe there's a new one now, but it's just ridiculous. We had at Novex, so we were ISO, so long ago now, was it 19,001? Before that, before there was B Corp, we were an ISO rated environmental rating because we wanted we wanted it to be validated, to be checked. And by the way, it improved our business. So, both ISO or B Corp improve our business and claim to the world that, someone else is certifying that. So again, there's a pride thing to it, but it's a validation, improves our business. The B Corp's excellent because the ISO in our industry, nobody knows it. I mean, if you got a chemical plant or in your mining industry, people get it, but in selling delivery, people don't even know often what it is or means anything. B Corp, however, does, and it's great that it's grown. Um, And Paul, how did you come to it? Because ours was kind of almost necessary in how you
Yeah.
do it. But
Yeah. We became the first customs broker to be a B Corp in the world.
nice.
Um,
Wow. Congratulations.
and so that was a motivating factor. But really, I mean, how did we come to it? I mean, you know my wife Virginia, and she comes from kind of social purpose background. For me, it's a family business, and certainly something that I absolutely enjoy doing. But I really felt I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something good with this business, right? And
Mhm.
which is still, I think, unusual in our space. Um, but as far as the B Corp, for me, really gave it structure. It gave it discipline, right? About how you get there, and I just like that. I like getting points. you know,
It's a good system. No, you're
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It sounds somewhat simple and silly, but I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, we didn't really know what we were getting into before we started this journey, but once we started going through all the different steps to get the certification, I can unequivocally say that Vector is a much, much better company after going through the B Corp certification. So it's one of those things that we didn't think that was going to be the case. We always had this giving culture and purpose attitude towards business, and we wanted to just have it certified by a third party provider. So it wouldn't be just us bragging about how good we were, but we could actually show something to prove it. And I gotta say, it was very tough. Took us almost 2 years, but when we came out of it, we became much better. We changed a lot of the processes. We actually questioned many things that we were doing, and we improved a lot. So I'm looking forward to the new certification because at the end of the day, the harder and more challenging it is, the better it should be for all the members because that's kind of why we signed up for it, or at least we did.
Yeah, I think we just got recertified, um, and we're also in the process of certifying our U.S. business. I think we're pretty close on that as well. So,
Congratulations, Paul.
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
How was the conference? How did you find the conference?
Okay, what
I've
do you?
actually never been to one.
Yeah.
I felt right at home, to be honest, and it's just one of those conferences. Another one is the conscious capitalism. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movement and the conference, the CEO Summit. And so when we first went to Vancouver, the only one I've been to, and it was the B Corp was incredible. Like kind of talking and hanging out with all these business owners that are kind of like-minded and interesting, and they're doing amazing things. Feels very natural and effortless, and I had a
Yeah.
really.
Okay. Yeah.
And you should
Food
go,
for the
Rob.
soul. Food
Why
for the
haven't
soul.
you? Why
Food for the
haven't you
soul.
attended these conferences?
Well, I think partly is I used to run the companies, but more I build the companies. So, our people who run it, Novex, for instance, they go. They recertify. They're always keen to add more points and all that kind of thing. So, uh, but I should. I know I love it.
Well, I think you had a question about coast to coast
Well,
experiences,
yeah, no, no,
which is
really
one of the other
interested in
companies.
in your coast to coast business. I didn't know much about it before, but from what I understand, so coast to coast brings purpose and sustainability into travel and corporate experiences. And again, a sector that maybe not always associated with environmental sustainability. Um, so very curious, like how did you integrate those values into the business model, and how do you see sustainability reshaping, the future of corporate travel and events and things like that?
Well, I'm glad that I think in the last 10 plus years, hotels, tours, there is an attraction people want the more they pay attention to and value. a lower footprint experience. They're aware of it. Even, flying now, I mean, think of it, when you fly, you can offset. I mean, that wasn't around until maybe 10 years ago. So with Coast to Coast, a tour bus company with about 120 tour buses, and these are the day only tour buses. They're not the ones that go long, the beautiful ones that go long distance, which you need to be really solid. These are, again, kind of like the local same day delivery thing. These aren't the best buses, right? They're not always the nicest buses. And I bought that in 2009. And soon after we were able to buy a couple electric tour buses, and there was only one company in the world making those. The electric buses then were all transit buses, low floor, not high floor where you can put things underneath and be a little higher to see things, right? So, but we found that they're way too expensive. They're so much more expensive. How was I going to and you've got to add the charging infrastructure. How was I going to change over the entire fleet? And so really, within the business, right away, I said, okay, well, we have to add walking and biking tours, that kind of thing. But, we could have 120 electric buses and still don't. By the way, I don't own the company anymore. I sold it a year ago. But I still work with the company to electrify its fleet. And that's what led to Fuse. I say, I can do this for everyone. This is way bigger than our one tour bus company. So now we work with many, many large fleets, not just tour fleets, but delivery fleets, the film industry, school buses, of course, to electrify them. And so we did what we could, and how you spend your money, or how you purchase, what you purchase, just printing the paper, the lighting, not flying, all that sort of thing. So you do all the things that we could, but the big thing was still the electric buses. And I would like to point this out, that so I've been working on this since 0304. I was an Al Gore trained speaker in, I think, 0809. So, he trained 200 people at a time for 4 days in Nashville to give the Inconvenient Truth talk. And I gave 28 of those locally. But that was still 15 years ago, when people were, we don't believe in it, or we're not sure. And there just weren't the tool around. I don't find there's as much pushback anymore on it inside a company or generally in conversation. But so with West Coast Sightseeing, again, when we got the two buses, even though there were only two out of 120, people were proud that we had them. They loved to use them all the time, and the drivers always competed to use, to be driving them. The customers always loved them. Sometimes when there's a business part to this, it always comes out to, we can't just be people and planet and not have a profit, because then we're gone. So they have to raise each other up. And I speak in terms of a business, and let me show you the green and the social things I did to improve the business, raise the sales, lower the costs, and reduce the risk, etc. But so that's how I got into Fuse. I'm going to do this for everyone. We still needed more electric equipment for the tour bus side. So I wasn't successful at doing that yet with ours. And yet, some of the large companies in our space, the hop on off business, they are implementing, electric buses. They are, because the cities will put taxes, congestion or pollution taxes. So they go, "Oh, I guess we can't go there if we don't have electric." So they're forced to. But we'll talk about Fuse in a moment. But in fact, having electric buses in the future will mean that it'll change the business plan or the business model of school buses, of tour buses, of companies that don't have a high duty cycle. In other words, they're not driving too far every day and they have a regular, they know when their buses are back at base. But this will change the business model and improve it. So what I say to, you'll love this, Paul, what I say to fleet owners, the first thing I say is I don't talk technology. I just say, would you like your EBITDA to go up 2 to 4%?
Well, who wouldn't, right? That seems like a very straightforward question, somewhat
Yeah.
even tricky, but I know with the experience that you've had, Rob, in general, and with all the different companies, you must have had and faced and successfully overcome challenges. Would you mind sharing one, like maybe one challenge that touched you the most? Could be personal or professional, something that our listeners can maybe relate to, or
Well, too many. Oh, and still learning.
I'm
But
sure, right? There's
I
tons.
would, I think related to this topic, um, change. And I heard this on the radio on the way in. That that was related to advertising. That you come up with a different idea. The usual immediate is, oh, that won't work, or why don't we just do it the way it is, or all the problems. There's always the naysayers to problems, and those are important because you have to navigate those. So learning to overcome those is what I had to learn. And so with Novex in the early days, I had religion. I was okay. We're going to green this company. Well, that's in '03. I mean, the president. Why would you do that? Who cares? I don't. Whatever. I don't even recycle. And a lot of the people in the business, I became aware that they viewed the change as meaning they were doing it wrong, or what they were doing wasn't right or not good enough. And so they were pushing back. So how did we overcome that? We overcame it essentially by listening to them, but also education. So I had the advantage of a kind of knowledge they didn't have about the effects and impacts of pollution, and that you could do it better and all that stuff. We had to share that with them, and all of them, and have a conversation so that they decided on their own to come on board. I'll stop there. But as an owner of companies, or if you're the leader, the command and control, telling people to do something, they'll do it for a while, but then they're going to show you it didn't work, or they'll leave. And so what's that about? So yeah, that was a lesson I learned, and continue to employ. I mean, yeah.
Maybe this a related.
I mean, were you the one that brought B Corp in, and everyone else still scratching their heads? They're going, why?
Yeah,
We've been asked why many times.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been an interesting journey as far as um, instilling these kind of philosophies in the company, in the people, right? And, we kind of talked about the positive around, that there's I think a bigger commitment from everyone. But, on the other hand, not everybody sort of comes from the same headspace, I guess. And so, there's the challenge, I guess, of to instilling the philosophy across the company, and across as many individuals as you can, I guess, uh, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I mean, I think um, on our U.S. company now, that where we're just close to getting certified, maybe even more challenging from a people perspective, right? We won't go there, but there's more challenging politics around this, perhaps south of the border, and so you know it's going to be interesting for sure.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think it's actually going to be a couple of very interesting years as this continues to develop the purpose movement, B Corps, and the just overall general policies that we're seeing right now. So it'll be interesting for sure. And I think, and I would claim that um, leaders like both of you are going to be needed even more. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us and our audience. Speaking of sustainability in general, Rob, and what do you see in the future? Like looking 5, 10, 20 years from now, what do you see, and then what would you like to change?
What would I like to change? I
Yeah.
don't see it as a choice, and you know, uh, politically, whatever people do or messages that come and go, um, it is a less expensive way to do things. It is a healthier, a happier way of doing things. I started talking earlier about, I still don't know what a ton of carbon looks like, but I do carry around a portable air quality monitor because people, we have a lot more fires now in Canada, and the smoke comes down to the States as well as Canada, and people, they go, whoa, my breathing, so that impacts people daily, and burning fossil fuels from vehicles or, in factories, uh, polluted air kills more people than climate change and will for a long time. And I think people will, are aware of that and get the direct effects of that. So I have faith that it is going to move forward, and some technologies are going to make incredible differences. And let's just assume that in 5+ years, before 10 years, there will be different kinds of batteries in cars. So now they'll be way cheaper and they'll go twice as far. And so it'll be like, yeah, of course I'm getting an electric car. So it'll just happen, technology or need or both. So what do I hope will happen? I hope that, I think humans will be on this earth as long as the sun is in this.
Paul, as we're wrapping up things.
Yeah. So maybe I'll ask one. Is it one more question? How are we doing for time?
Sure. But
Yeah.
we could talk with Rob for forever, but yes, just two questions
Okay.
more. But
Okay. I think that, you know, of all the, businesses that you've uh, purchased, Rob, and you know, uh, how would you, for founders or executives that kind of want to embed a sustainability into their operations, um, y- where would they start, or how would you counsel them?
Okay. Uh, I do have my answer to that is always the same. And I'm so glad now that it's not 2003 or seven. Get an audit, have an audit of your business. It's not expensive. You don't have to do the much work. You just, there's so many groups now that will come in and pull out your data and give you a report. And that's worked so well because a business person can deal with a report and with numbers, and here are the top 3 things to do, and get after the low hanging fruit. It's almost easy. It's just do it, walk forward, and then watch for the unanticipated benefit. Like notice, um, some people in your business will just love it. Others won't care, but they'll go along. Don't typically fight it. Some people do leave, but you're self-selecting to something more enduring. So it's easy now. Get an audit, get the information, get the numbers, and have fun with it. You know, I will tell this one story. Novex, we focused on 3 things. Is that what you do with B Corp or the audits, whatever, right? And we focused on, of course, the air pollution, the GHGs of the cars. That was the big thing. And then it was paper and the heating in the warehouse, or the gas or electric heating. And with the heating, we had about a 5,000 square foot warehouse. It was super high. Uh, I'd say an average 10 minutes, an hour, somebody was in it. That's it. And it used to be the lights were on all day and it was heated. So we got a motion sensor for the lights. We turned off the heat and we got the guy a jacket.
that's it. That was pretty easy.
Yeah,
And maybe a hat and some mitts.
you talked about measuring, and I'll just tell you a little story quick, is that when we were measuring our footprint. And when we expanded the scope, and I can never remember scope 1, 2, 3. I get confused by them, but is measuring, like, if we're shipping stuff around the world, right? It goes by ocean, it goes by rail, it goes by truck, all that sort of stuff. We found that the company we used to measure our domestic footprint didn't understand the international part, didn't understand the transportation as much, right? So we had to use a different organization to do that. So, so I guess it was a learning experience, right? And live and learn.
Nice.
But yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
It's and to your point earlier, and then maybe we can just come full circle back to AI. I think that this is not as hard as people might think it is, right? I mean, there's a self assessment on the B Corp website that will put the link to it. But again, as Rob mentioned, as Paul confirmed, I think the first step for everyone out there that's listening to this conversation and want to or is inclined to think that people, planet, and profit is a great strategy for your own companies, then yeah, conducting that self-assessment or having a company come and give you a assessment is definitely the first step. And Rob, thank you so much. And Paul, great sharing this with you as well.
Yeah, it was
Is
fun.
there any kind of parting thoughts or call of action? And I'll ask this question for both because it's a pleasure having you both here. Um, Paul, any action items for our audience? What would you
Well,
like them to do?
it was a comment I wanted to make, actually, about, because Rob, you had mentioned about greenwashing, right? And the B Corp process is a way to demonstrate that that's not what we're about. I heard a new word, and it's a fairly recent word, and it's green hushing. And I don't know if you guys heard this word, and it's just, at the risk of going there, I would say, it's just, given the political environment, that a lot of companies are less willing to talk about it. They're still doing it, they just won't talk about it as much, right? And which is very unfortunate, right? I think, one of the things that we're a small company, our footprint is small, all that kind of stuff. But we looked at it as like every little bit counts, and our influence can be much bigger than our immediate impact, right? And that's kind of where so a lot of it is talking about it and influencing others, right? And so that would be my parting comment.
It's a scary term right now, and it's true. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't change how we operate, and we will be operating in the States, but it's better business. It changes the business model. They should make more money and be able to proceed. The only thing I would add, if you're asking for parting comments, is because I did sort of study it or look at it a lot, is the thing that makes what the term you want to use these days anymore, but greening your business or reducing your footprint, the thing that's the highest predictor of its success is the fact that the leadership is engaged and involved. It can doesn't have to start with the leadership, but it really makes it much easier if they go, yeah, we're let's go. So to you, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you to both. Where could our audience reach out to you? Rob, what's the best way of getting in touch with you?
Well, I would invite anyone listening that has a fleet of vehicles anywhere, especially in North America, to get in touch. And for me, it's R, the letter R, Safrata, SAF as in Frank, RATA, at fuse-power. And would welcome anyone to reach out. A number of the states as well have programs that are very welcoming to, returning power from your electric bus, truck, or car to the grid, and they'll pay handsomely for it. So you can improve your EBITDA, your earnings to the company, and as we all know, improve your marketing stance, all kinds of things, the pride in your business. And serendipity is a superpower. So hopefully someone will. get it.
What about yourself? How can people connect to you?
Well, my email address, I think, should be pretty easy to remember. So it's paul@courtney.ca. So
We'll
first
make
name,
sure to
last
put all
name.
the links to your bios on LinkedIn and all that when we post this episode. But thank you so much, and to everyone listening to this very engaging conversation. If you liked talking to Rob and Paul, don't forget to subscribe to Logistics with Purpose, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.